Hi everyone, welcome. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today. I have with me Amy Lee, who is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and master neuroenergetics practitioner. She's the founder of Gratitude and Glamour, and she invented the dream design discipline where Amy helps her clients name their dreams, shows them the path to bringing those dreams forward, and then empowers them to unleash their dreams. Hi Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. Okay, so what's your story? Like, how did you end up doing the work that you do now?
Oh my gosh, such a good story. Okay, so my husband was in the military and we were living in Alaska and it was negative 60 degrees. You could literally like pour water in the air and it would evaporate. It was insane. And I had two small children and I found out I had another one on the way and I found out my husband was deploying and I'm like, this is stupid. Like this is not the life I signed up for. So I went to him and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't want to do this. You're my best friend. I want to spend our time together. Like, we need to figure this out. And he was like, well, then you need to figure out how to make the money that I'm making. Because if I'm going to get out of the army, like we need an income. And I was like, yep, I will. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. So I had remembered that I had watched The Secret and I kind of dabbled in the law of attraction in college and things like that. So we went back and we watched some, this seminar from Bob Proctor from the 80s, You Were Born Rich. And one of the things that Bob kept saying in this seminar was, what do you really want? What do you really want? And when I went to write that down, I realized that I didn't know what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. I knew all the things that I wouldn't tolerate anymore, but I didn't actually know what I did want. Once I sat down and started really mapping out my desires, crazy things started to happen. When I aligned my energy with the desires, suddenly those things started coming into my life. And so we obviously, we replicated my husband's income. We bought a car in cash. We got out of the army. I was making, multi six figures a month. And it was all based on knowing what I truly desired. So I was in a network marketing company. I did very well over there. It was my goal in joining this company to be a visionary. I wanted to share what I had learned about the law of attraction and manifestation with the company and the people. And I thought that this would be a good vehicle. And for a while it was. And then it got to kind of a point where my message of prosperity above and beyond the company kind of got a little bit too much for them, where they were just kind of like, okay, great, let's keep them in this box. Like we want them to think of this in the confines of this business, not in the world. And that no longer aligned with me. So I had to make a decision and I left the company. And I was still making 5 figures a month, in the company, multi 5 figures. And I left and I started my own coaching business. And at first I started with coaching empaths and highly sensitives. And then I realized that it didn't really light me up to coach a type of person, like on what it was that they were. For me, it made more sense. I still wanted to coach that population, but I wanted it to be in something, right? So it's like, if you have like firefighters who, you don't teach them how to be firefighters, you teach firefighters how to invest in real estate, right? So it's like the niche and then like what you're doing. And what I found was that a lot of people were just like me. These highly sensitive, empathic people didn't know what they wanted. They either were too overwhelmed because the decision fatigue, or they didn't feel like they deserved it. And that's when I realized that I could create an entire discipline specifically around this idea of what I then called dream design. So dream design was born and I became the dream design coach, and I have helped thousands of entrepreneurs and entrepreneur-minded women and some men really tap into their true desires. And as time goes on and I evolve in my message and, in my connection to source, I realize that there's so much more to that. And so where we are right now, as we're recording this, I have just come out of another set of really powerful, really juicy downloads that have given me like another layer of this work that I've been doing. And so, if you're to look at any of my, the language on my website or anything like that, you're seeing things that are very much still kind of in that original world. Probably within the next 6 months or so, there's going to be like a whole evolution of a whole new level that's going to kind of take place. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
So I know one topic that you love to talk about, which I think is really, really interesting and valuable, is the interplay between like masculine and feminine energy in business. So I'm really curious, like, what's your perspective on that? Where do you see people getting hung up or like blocked or like stuck or misunderstanding, this energy dynamic? And like, what do you wish more people understood?
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there, Sarah, but to kind of explain it the best way in a short amount of time, we've got different levels of consciousness. So the very basic level of consciousness is to me consciousness. Things happen to me, it's a very victim consciousness. Like I don't have the power. This happened to me, I can't ever get ahead because she did this, or this person did this, or this. It's a very disempowered way of living. And there are a lot of people, as I'm sure you're nodding your head, that live this way and don't ever really find a way to the next level. But what I think you and I tend to deal with in terms of our clientele is the next level, and that is by me consciousness. By me consciousness is all about, if it's going to happen, I have to do it. I have to be in charge. I have to make the decisions. I've got to go find this strategy. I've got to go get this coach. I've got to go do this. It's all on my shoulders. And the problem with that, it's a very controlled place. So we're going from no control to all the control, but it's not sustainable. And so what I mean by that is that it's kind of like, I like to think of it like if you have, so in my house, we have 3 giant air conditioners. My house is like 4,900 square feet. If one of the air conditioners goes down, the other 2 air conditioners are going to feel the temperature of the whole house and try to take over and cool the whole house. But what happens if 2 go down? That one air conditioner doesn't understand that. And it's like, I don't understand why it's still hot. Like, I need to keep going. And eventually what will happen is if we don't fix those other 2, that third one's going to go down, right? Because it's doing the work of everything. So this is what a lot of women and some men are doing in their businesses. They're trying to do it all. They're trying to be everywhere at the same time and also take care of the kids and also take care of the finances and also have dreams and self-care and all these things. And they can do that for a short term. But eventually we start to see the breakdown of the body. We see, rapid aging and all kinds of things. So it's really important that people understand that there is another level after that. And the level after that is usually where I'm trying to take people. And I think you try to take people from the money perspective, and it's through me consciousness. So it's instead of being the end, the destination for the abundance, for the wealth, for whatever, we're more of a pass through, and we're understanding that we're part of a channel. And so when we get to through me consciousness, we recognize that we are divinely supported, that we are not just here on our own. In fact, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we have this illusion that like, oh, the money, the money, the money. And a lot of people, that's all they can think about is, oh my gosh, I owe this money. And there's so much entanglement to shame and resentment and disappointment and loss of dignity that goes along, that's really enmeshed with these concepts. And when we start to understand, well, it's not my money, it's not my bills, it's not my debt, it's debt, it's the debt, it's not my debt, it's the debt. This is an arm. This isn't my arm. It's an arm that's attached to the body that my spirit lives in, right? So when we start to disconnect from these things, we lose the shame, we lose the disappointment, we lose the fear, because we're like, oh, this is just something. It's like if you're sitting in a restaurant and there's a wobbly leg on the table, you don't make that your problem. You're not like, oh my gosh, there's a wobbly leg on this table, I'm a terrible person. You're like, it's not my table. Right? So when we can detach from the ownership of a lot of these things, this is what we find is that we kind of start to relax and we understand that like, there's a greater picture. I have this illusion that this is all my problem, but akin to, like a jigsaw puzzle, which you don't sit there and go, oh my gosh, I can't find the edge piece. Like life is over, and yet in the jigsaw puzzle of humanity, we freak out over the littlest things because we make it mean something about us.
Before we get back to the episode, I have something exciting to tell you about. There were a couple of key things that changed everything in my life as an entrepreneur that allowed me to bring in 6 figures while working half as many hours and having more fun than ever before in my business. It was money mindset work around how I was doing business, combined with getting good at sharing strategic sales content online. I know you know that this is your year to start hitting your 10K month income goal and living the life of creative freedom and fulfillment you have been dreaming about. You're ready to be consistently attracting total dream soulmate clients through the creative content you're sharing on social media, and you want to be reaching more people, charging higher rates, and working much less. So I'm very excited to invite you to join me in Freedom Club, my mastermind, where you'll receive tailored high-level support to master the skills that will create your dream life and six-figure dream business starting now. With focused weekly trainings and coaching calls to find the clarity on your content that's going to make you the most money, to design a simple, fun launch strategy you'll enjoy following through on, plus daily support and feedback from me in the Voxer chat, you'll find that sweet spot in your business where you're the most confident in your work, having the most fun, and making the most money. Go to withsarahmac.com/freedom club to apply now. Now let's get back to the episode.
So the difference between that feminine and masculine is the feminine is kind of like sitting on the tuffet saying, to the divine partner, hey, this is what I desire. Please go get it for me. Whereas the masculine is like, you know what? I've got it. I'll get it myself. And the universe is over here tapping its foot like, well, why the hell do you need me? Like, why am I here? So we really need to start, and I think we are, as a population and as a species, we're starting to understand that there is quantum entanglement. I mean, science is even pointing to this. We are all interconnected. And so really tapping in and understanding that the abundance comes from the belief that the abundance is coming and less from all the little busy work that we do. Is there some of that? Yeah, absolutely. Right. The whole idea of, if you want to win the lottery, you got to buy a ticket. Sure. Inspired action all day long, but micromanaging and constantly worrying and doubting the system and doubting the process, that's really just going to create what my husband calls taking 3 left turns, right? Like, you want to work and you want to do something. So you keep moving and you end up putting yourself in a circle. Does that kind of explain it?
Yeah, I want to pull out some of like the main nuggets of what you just shared that I think are really important. Number one is alignment with true desire. Because, I really saw that magic for myself and I see that magic with clients. And I think that is like the most important piece of the work. Because like you say, with that like whole idea of 3 left turns, like you can be hustling and hustling and pushing towards something that you don't actually want, or that you thought you needed to do, or somebody told you that you wanted. And that's when you get caught in that like, oh, this isn't working, or I'm not good enough, or this is hard. When actually like doing that work to really tune in and really listen and ask yourself, like, what do I actually want? Because once we identify that, it's like you can take a tiny little nudge in that direction and it's like poof, like everything just starts to show up for you and like magical things start to transpire. I actually did a live stream about this last week because I was just reminding myself, it's like, yeah, what you're talking about, like as a tangible example is even sometimes when you just set an intention that's aligned, it starts to unfold before you've even taken any action. And I've seen this with clients with like, you're like, oh, this is the type of client I want to work with. And like, this is what I'm passionate about talking about. And just having that clarity, people will start to show up in their world and start asking them for that even before they've done any marketing. And that always happens to me with my podcast. I'm like, oh, I like really want some more awesome guests on my podcast. And, yes, I like did a shout out on my Facebook, but even just with, or like, I want to be on other people's podcast, like I set that intention, and because it's so aligned, like suddenly I just start getting interview requests, whereas like I hadn't had any for a really long time. Just tuning into that desire and knowing that it's really aligned, knowing it's going to be really fun for me, and it's it's an aligned action that's taking me towards my bigger goals and dreams. So I think that's really important, and like really having that clarity on the aligned action over the busy work. I think would you say that's kind of like the clarity between masculine and feminine? It's like, yes, you do have to take action. Yes, you do have to ask. Yes, you do have to have a clear intention. And yes, obviously action is required, but the feminine is really, that connection to divinity and that trust, and really like removing all of the emotional baggage that comes with like feeling like you're responsible for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I like to think of the masculine, M for masculine, material, right? It's like things that you can go do. They're tangible things. Energetics is a whole different ballgame. Energetics is that feminine piece. And by the way, when we say feminine, what I mean is the yin and the yang, right? So this doesn't mean female. It doesn't mean, dresses like a girl or pink or blue. We're talking specifically about feminine and masculine in terms of, two parts of the divine union. So the feminine energy is more of like allowing. It's more of like submitting to the will of the masculine energy. And a lot of people get in their heads about the submissive and dominance thing, but what it really is about, it's about, I know what I want and I am opening and relaxing to letting the universe come in and bring it to me. Right? It doesn't mean that I'm giving up my free will and I'm just going to be there and let the universe use me. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about I am choosing to put my power into the hands of this greater power, this purpose, and allow my needs to be met through it. But I'm the one who's in charge of what those needs are. And I think that's a really beautiful place to be. And so what my work is kind of moving toward is that courtship, that divine union between the inner goddess, right? The other self inside of all of us, and her, or the connection to the divine masculine, which is the go and get. So I think of it kind of like, if your husband in the middle of the night, you're like, babe, I kind of want a snack. Will you run to will you run to the gas station? And he's like, yeah, babe, what do you want? And you're like, I don't know. Can you just get me something? And he's like, sure, yeah. So he runs off to the gas station and he's like, there's a whole freaking store full of stuff here. I don't know what to get her. Well, I know she likes chocolate. So let me go see if there's some chocolate. And then the lady at the counter is like, oh yeah, we have these chocolate covered, oranges. She might love that. And he's like, yeah, that sounds good. And he comes home and he brings you this chocolate covered orange. And you're like, babe, why'd you give me a chocolate covered orange? You didn't say what you wanted. I know you like chocolate. I like pretzels. I like candy. I like chips. Like, dude, WTF? Like, why is it? You didn't specify. So this is what happens in our lives. We're like, I want a good house. I want a good relationship. I want money. Like, I want $10,000. And it's like, great. And like, what in what context, So this is kind of where we really have to hone in and go, okay, well, that if you say, hey, babe, go get me this, and you see him drive away and he's on his way and he goes, that it's coming. You don't go, I wonder if he's on his way and he's like, he gets bored and he goes and sits in front of the lake. Or like, what if he decides not to get me a snack? What if he decides today is the day to be mad at me for the thing that I did 3 years ago? Like, you don't have these conversations. So why is it that when we call in things from the universe or from our higher power, we doubt it? We're like, I don't know, but what if it does? But what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't? It's like Amazon. You press the button and the box comes. You're not like, oh, what if the person steals it? Like, we just don't have those concerns. But yet from an energetic perspective, we don't see those tangible building blocks the way we do in the material world. It doesn't mean that they're not still there. It doesn't mean that we're not still energetically connected to each other, but we just haven't created those, pathways to believe that. But it is just as, and I would venture to say, maybe even more connected than some of these material things.
This is so good. And I have a couple of thoughts that popped up around this. So one, obviously, is it's about trust, right? And I know like that's such a deep wound, particularly for women, particularly if you've experienced any type of like hurt or pain or betrayal or trauma in the past, which is like so common. And that's a wound that like actively we need to heal and work on and shift our mindset around. And also, I'm like kind of a type A, like control person. And so are many of my clients. And actually what I find, this is why I love mindset work, and it's particularly money mindset work, because I find it's kind of like a masculine action that strengthens your feminine. So it's like you write down like what are all of the like emotional tensions that I'm carrying? What are all of the thoughts and the stories that are perpetuating this lack of trust, this emotional tension, like worry, anxiety, whatever those patterns are that we've been living because of whatever we've experienced. and to actually start to break that down and then shifting that story, that's, it's kind of like a masculine action and tool that really allows us to shift our energetics. And we always, when we focus on those stories of trust, we start to tap into those emotions, and then that's when the magic starts to show up, and that's when we really are able to create evidence in our ability to trust and our ability to set clear intentions. And there's so much power in just, getting into the specifics, like you say, and writing down what you actually want, to be able to start to integrate that into your way of being and your way of thinking. I love this conversation. I could literally talk to you about it all day. I think this has been so valuable. So thank you for sharing. What have you got going on? Where can people connect with you and find out more about what you're up to?
Yeah, so like you, I have a Facebook group. It's called Designed to Dream, and you guys are more than welcome to join me there. I have a website. It's amyleewestervelt.com, so that's pretty easy to find. And then I have a fun freebie for you guys that I will drop in here for Sarah. It's a it's a kind of a PDF that takes you through these levels of consciousness and gives you some questions to ask. That will kind of help you to really figure out where you are on this consciousness levels. And then, some action items to help you kind of move through to the next one if you're interested in that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching and listening. Please share this episode with anyone you know who will benefit. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com, and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.